So we've made videos about Latvia and Lithuania. Now it's finally time to present to you the final Baltic country, last but not least. From the mysterious underwater prison to the decaying remains of a once beautiful mansion, here are 10 creepiest abandoned places in Estonia. But first, we'd like to thank our Estonian subscribers out there for being patient and suggesting a video about their country. There's certainly quite a few strange abandoned places out there, which makes it quite unique compared to other places we mentioned. Number 10. Ungrer Manor. If you're not familiar with the country of Estonia, that's okay. By the end of this video, you'll at least know about some of the strange abandoned places here. If you look on the map, it's just south of Finland and north of Latvia and northern Europe. The Ungrer Manor is located in northeastern Estonia, built in neo-Baroque style, and has sort of a sad story to it, as you can probably imagine. This would have been a majestic mansion that was built by a prince in the 1890s in a similar style to a castle found in Germany called Mersburg. When he was visiting Germany, he fell in love with the beautiful German princess there and wanted to recreate the castle to show her his love. He returned to Estonia to oversee the construction, but things would take a tragic turn for the worse. He received the tragic news from Germany and found out that his princess died in a horrifying fire and the building was abandoned. He was completely heart-wrenched, fell into a deep depression, and died not long after himself. Other parts of the house were then scrapped for all the valuable materials. Number 9. Hobslaut Airfield. Situated just a few miles away from that creepy abandoned mansion is another really creepy abandoned runway. This one was once used to house long-range aircraft, possibly long enough to run attacks on the US. The Soviet military operated this device since they took over Estonia in the mid-1940s. It was mostly used for interceptor jets. However, in case the US decided to attack Russia during the Cold War, this would be available. The facility had 28 plane hangars, and it's been sitting in an open field as a reminder of Estonia's dark past. No one has really seen a reason to completely eradicate the airfield or the hangars. In fact, they began to use it for drag races. Here you might see some kind of drifting going on, which isn't illegal here though. What's even spookier is that the cement plane hangars actually have all their metal doors removed, so some people might decide to venture off inside these hangars. The creepy buildings from the past have transformed into echo chambers, and they were so well built that they reflect any noise made inside. Number 8. Jara Submarine Base. Estonia was an important area for the Soviets to fortify due to its proximity with neighboring Finland. If enemies were able to get submarines into the Gulf of Finland, it would certainly mean bad news for the major city of St. Petersburg. The construction of a major submarine base just about an hour outside the capital city of Tallinn was essential for control of the Baltic land. Built in 1958, it was used while occupying Estonia up until 1991. It was this year that Estonia finally declared their independence. The site is now abandoned, and there have been no attempts to repair it for any reason. Urban explorers have now claimed the base as their own, and scrappers have taken everything of value. Here we see the graffiti inside the barren walls of this submarine base. The taggers have no mercy for this structure that was once a sign of an occupying force. We aren't able to read Estonian, but we imagine that there's quite a bit of deep meaning behind some of the graffiti messages on there. Number 7. Sillamäe, Estonia. This place hasn't gone completely abandoned just yet, although it's beginning to look a lot like the Estonian version of Detroit. Not only is it nearly abandoned, it's also extremely toxic as well. This was built back during the Soviet Union times when Stalin was searching for uranium to use for fuel in nuclear reactors. Uranium processing was the city's main source of income until the Soviet Union began to fall and Estonia had reclaimed independence. However, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the people living there no longer had an employer, and there was really no way to continue funding the uranium processing plants here. It also became the world's largest producer of rare and strange metals such as niobium and titanium. Anyways, pretty much every photo ever taken of this place will show you there's barely anyone that lives here. Many claim that this city still has the best preserved Stalinistic architecture to it, and you can imagine it was quite nice during its heyday. It still even looks like a model city, but just no one there. Number 6. Kunda Cement Factory. Located off the harsh northern coast of Finland, the Kunda Nordic Cement Factory was once a prosperous manufacturer of cement during the 1870s. And so far you can probably tell that other abandoned places use a lot of cement during this time. Kunda's natural resources and manufacturing plants are quite visible on Google Maps, and it's also notable for the port and fishing. Some evidence would suggest that hunting and fishing communities here existed at Kunda as far back as 6500 BC. The ruins of the cement factory are quite visible as well, and it's easy to see that this was once an important part of the town's economy long ago. In a small town of only 4,000 people, the cement factory stands as a landmark from the past. This cement factory is now abandoned and has been dedicated as a historic structure to Estonia, strangely enough. You don't imagine too many visitors would be thrilled by the thoughts of visiting a cement factory, but this is Estonia, and things are a little bit different here. Scientists and historians are quite fascinated by this site, and have even left their handprints in wet cement as a dedication to the region's past. Number 5. Patara Prison. The archaic Russian prison on the seaside of Tallinn was originally built as a site of fortification in the 19th century in order to protect sea routes to St. Petersburg to the east. It doesn't matter if it's winter or summer, if you got sent to this seaside prison, you weren't gonna have a good time. Just by taking one look at this prison, you might start to think that it's possibly one of the most haunted places in Europe. This strategic fortification was operational up until the 2000s, but now is permanently closed as a prison. This was built in a neoclassical style, but the design is entirely unique in comparison to other prisons or fortresses in Europe. You might not even think it was a prison until you went inside or saw the barbed wire fences. The total square footage of this complex is about 17,000 square meters, or about 56,000 square feet, making this quite massive. Today, it stands as a dark tourist attraction similar to other prisons we've seen in our videos like Korosta in Latvia. The unique setting has also made it an interesting place for modern-day events. Occasionally, this former prison is even transformed into a venue for raves. Number 4. Reesie Manor. Here's another example of a beautiful manor in Estonia, which has gone abandoned. Formerly built by Russian aristocracy in the 1800s, this stone building certainly seems like people would at least put some effort into restoring it, but the inside is still dusty and off-limits to the public. Erected in 1818 in neoclassical architecture, the massive home was later used as an orphanage during the Soviet times, and eventually it would be closed for good in 1944. Guests who decide to visit are amazed by its size and the amount of luxury it would provide to anyone if it wasn't abandoned. There aren't tons of details about the history of this place, and much of its history is quite mysterious. You can see from an aerial view that the roof is beginning to rust, which would probably be quite pricey to repair. There's also an artificial lake in the background that doesn't seem to be in the condition the aristocrats would have liked. It's strange to see the transformation of such high-class places obtain such a new stranger beauty to them once they've been left in the elements, such as this place. Number 3. Rummu Prison. This abandoned prison, located in the country of Estonia, was once considered to be Europe's Alcatraz. A quarry was formed to gather marble in the 1930s, but it quickly became a prisoner camp where subjects were forced into a life of hard labor or slavery. Near the quarry are 2 prisons, which the most visited one being Rummu Prison. Groundwater began to rise and it submerged the prison, but surrounded by its crystal clear waters and white sands. Once the empire of the Soviets had crumbled, apparently, so did many of the buildings. This flooded prison, which was once home to so much human suffering, has also become a tourist attraction to thrill-seeking scuba divers. Built from limestone, this housed an estimated 7,000 convicts between 1930 and 1931. Many were forced into hard labor for nearly 12 hours a day. It might not look like too much from the outside, but there's seemingly an endless amount of things to explore underwater. Here in this photo, we see some scuba divers swimming up near the barbed wire fence that once surround the enclosure. In present times, local Estonians enjoy having picnics in the area. Soviet prisons in Estonia were once a little slice of hell, and maybe the reason it becomes popular for Estonians is to remember their history in a non-aggressive way. Number 2. Wagner Island. This island is considered to be Tallinn's only island, and despite there being about 100 people or so living here, the majority of the island is abandoned. During the beginning of the 20th century, there's a massive effort to fortify the coast of Estonia, and islands off the coast were a good way to add further protection. This was the case for Wagner Island, and all citizens were forced to leave in the early 19th century. The effort to fortify this place grew even bigger when the Soviets took over, and many of the military-related buildings here are abandoned. Although it's heavily wooded, that doesn't mean explorers won't come across strange things, such as these concrete caltrops. There's also a few labyrinths that you might find scattered throughout the forest. And number 1. Linnahall. Also located in the capital city of Tallinn, this old abandoned concert and sports hall sits right on the edge of the Finland Strait just outside of Tallinn's Old Town. During the 22nd Olympics, Moscow hosted a sailing event here, which was given to Estonia to be in charge of. This was because they found no proper sailing locations as far inland as Moscow, and therefore a structure in Estonia had to be constructed. In modern times, the venue is home to a helipad, which transports Finnish people normally looking to buy cheaper alcohol over here. The outside area still has a Soviet-style look to it, and it takes up quite a few square meters. Explorers might come across some graffiti, but other than that, this former Soviet structure still sits at the edge of the coast in good condition.
So did you find that to be creepy? Let us know in the comments section and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video.